Good morning, children. Today we will continue from page number 35. Then, in the 7th grade, he got a hint of what real science is when he entered a county science fair and lost. It was really a sad feeling to sit there and not get anything while everybody else had won something. Abright said. His entry was slides of frog tissues which he showed under a microscope. He realized the winners had tried to do real experiments, not simply make a neat display. So when Abright was in 7th class, then he really get an idea of what science is actually, and that he get from when he get a chance to go in a science fair which was held in their region. County is a region, so he got a chance to enter into a science fair and he lost there. He didn't get any prize. And when he was sitting there and when he was observing other children who had taken part in that fair, almost all of them have won something. He was the only one who didn't get anything and he felt very sad about it. Then he realized actually what science is. And in that fair, he exhibited a slide only which was of frog tissue. It was very neatly prepared by him and he simply showed it under a microscope. And when he saw the winners, then he realized that the real winners are those who had tried to do some real experiment. They really have done some experiment, and what he had done, he had simply shown a frog tissue slide under a microscope. So then he come to know that in order to win some prize, he had to do some real experiment. Already the competitive spirit that drives Richard Abright was appearing. Now, after taking part in that science fair, he come to know actually how to take part in the competition, what the competition spirit is. That now has come into it, and that forces him to do some real experiment. I knew that for the next year's fair I would have to do a real experiment, he said. The subject I knew most about was the insect work I had been doing in the past several years, and then he decided that for the next year competition he will do some real experiment, and of course he will do on the insect, and that was butterfly, upon which he had been working for the past many years. So he decided to do some real experiment with the butterflies. So he wrote to Dr. Urquhart for ideas, and back came a stack of suggestions for experiments. Those kept Abright busy all through high school and led to prize projects in county and international science fairs. So, in order to get some idea about his experiment, he asked Dr. Urquhart, and in response, a large number of ideas and suggestions came from Dr. Urquhart. And after that, he remained so busy that when he was in high school, he achieved or he got many prizes by making the projects on the ideas that were given to him by Dr. Urquhart. He won prizes in his own region as well as in the international science fairs also. He won many prizes. For his 8th grade project, Abright tried to find the cause of a viral disease that kills nearly all monarch caterpillars every few years. Now, when he was in 8th grade, his project was to find the reason of a disease because of which almost all the monarch caterpillars they were killed. And Abright thought the disease might be carried by a beetle. He tried raising caterpillars in the presence of beetles. I didn't get any real results, he said, but I went ahead and showed that I had tried the experiment. This time I won. So what he thought, that the cause of the death of these monarch caterpillars may be because of the presence of a beetle. So he decided to raise or to bring up the caterpillars and the beetles side by side. But he didn't get any real result. He was not able to find out the reason of the death of the caterpillars. But it was clear that it was not because of the presence of beetle the monarchs were being dead. So he went ahead, he showed his experiment in the fair, and really he had done something. So that time also he won a prize. The next year, his science fair project was testing the theory that viceroy butterflies copy monarchs. The theory was that viceroys look like monarchs because monarchs don't taste good to birds. Viceroys, on the other hand, do taste good to birds. So, the more they look like monarchs, the less likely they are to become a bird's dinner. So, in the next year, for his science project, he worked on a theory that the viceroy butterflies they try to copy the monarch butterflies. Children, you can see the figure here. Both the types of butterflies are shown. The on the top is the monarch butterfly and the bottom is the viceroy butterflies. So he tried to show that the viceroy butterflies they try to copy monarchs. The reason is that the these monarchs butterflies they don't taste good to birds, whereas the viceroys they taste very good to the insects, to the birds. So the viceroys since they taste good, so all the insects try to eat them. So in order to protect themselves from these birds, the monarchs they try to copy, because if they look like uh, viceroys, definitely the insects will not, sorry, the birds will not eat them. They have less danger of being eaten by the birds, so they copy. So Ebright he worked on this, and Ebright's project was to see whether in fact birds would eat monarchs, and he wanted to see that really the birds eat monarchs. He found that a starling is, it's a dark brown and black colored bird that is very common in Europe and US. So he found that a starling would not eat ordinary bird food, it would eat all the monarchs it could get. So when he was experimenting, he found that the starling, the bird, it doesn't eat ordinary bird food, rather whenever it get any monarch, it eat all the monarchs. And Ebright said later research by other people showed that viceroys they probably do copy the monarchs. This project was placed first in the zoology division and third overall in the county science fair. So, and the thing which Ebright tried to prove, it was later on proved by other people also. It was correct that really they try to copy the monarchs, and it was all because they wanted to escape themselves from to being a bird's dinner. So it was the truth and it was proved. So this project was placed, it was given the first prize in the zoology division, and it stood third in the overall science exhibition that was in there, that was held in their region. Now the next page, children. In his second year in high school, Richard Ebright began the research that led to the discovery of an unknown insect hormone. Indirectly, it also led to his new theory on the life of cells. So when he was in his high school, in the second year of his high school, he he began his research, and that led him to the discovery of an unknown insect hormone, and it also led to the new theory on the life of cells. The question he tried to answer was simple. What is the purpose of the 12 tiny gold spots on a monarch pupa? Actually, the monarch pupa, it has 12 tiny gold spots. Nobody knows what is the reason of those. Some said that it is just because of the decoration, because of the ornamentation only. These are just for decoration. But everyone assumed the spots were just ornamental. Means generally what they think, or whatever the scientists or the researchers were, they always thought that these are just decorative. But Ebright said, but Dr. Urquhart didn't believe it. But Dr. Urquhart, he didn't believe in this theory. To find the answer, Ebright and another excellent science student first had to build a device that showed that the spots were producing a hormone necessary for the butterfly's full development. So Dr. Urquhart's belief was true. The spots, they were not just ornamental. Actually, they were producing a hormone which was very much important for the full growth of a butterfly. So in order to show it, they had to invent a device, and that device showed that. So this device, it was made by Ebright and one other science student. This project won Ebright first place in the county fair and entry into the international science and engineering fair. So because since it was a big discovery, so he stood first, and it was an entry to the international science and engineering fair also. There he won third place for zoology He also got a chance to work during the summer at the entomology laboratory of the Walter Reed Army Institute of Research. So after that, he won prize because of that only for zoology, and he also got a chance to work in a full furnished laboratory. Entomology is the study of insects. So there was a laboratory in which the study of insects was done. It was the Walter Reed Army Institute of Research, and it was very well known and well equipped. So only a few students get a chance to work there. So Ebright was among the one lucky ones that he got a chance to work in that laboratory during his summer break. As a high school junior, Richard Ebright continued his advanced experiments on the monarch pupa. That year, his project won first place at the International Science Fair and gave him another chance to work in the army laboratory during the summer. So, again, when as a high school junior, he continued his advance on the same project on the monarch's pupa, and this year again he won the prize, and again he got a chance to work in the same laboratory during the summer. In his senior year, he went a step further. So, in the next year, he moved a step ahead. He grew cells from a monarch's wing in a culture and showed that the cells would divide and develop into normal butterfly wing scales only if they were fed the hormone from the gold spots. So, in the next year, what he did, he moved a step further, and what he did, he just take the a monarch's wing in a culture and he grew cells from them, and these cells they turned into a complete butterfly only when they were fed by the hormone that was produced by the gold spots, which he had proved earlier. So that project won the first place for zoology at the international fair. Again, it was a big achievement, and it made clear that the gold spots they are so important for the growth of a butterfly, for the full development of a butterfly. And again, this project it stood first in the international fair. He spent the summer after graduation doing further work at the army lab and at the lab of the US Department of Agriculture, and because of this he got again chance to work further in that well furnished lab, and this took him to do more and new experiments. The following summer, after his freshman year at Harvard University, Ebright went back to the laboratory of the Department of Agriculture and did more work on the hormone from the gold spots. Since now the next summer also, as a freshman, as a fresher at the Harvard University, he again went to the same lab of the Department of Agriculture, and he further continued his experiment on the hormone from the gold spot, and using the lab's sophisticated instruments. Sophisticated means well developed or developed to a very high degree. He used those instruments and he was able to identify the chemical structure of that hormone. A year and a half later, during his junior year, Ebright got the idea for his new theory about cell life. It came when he was looking at X-ray photos of the chemical structure of a hormone. So, after 1.5 years, during his study at the Harvard University, he got the idea for his new theory about the cell life. And it came when he was just looking at an X-ray photo of the chemical structure of a hormone. Suddenly, then the idea came to his mind. And when he saw those photos, Ebright didn't shout, Eureka! Or even I have got it. But he believed that, along with his findings about insect hormones, the photos gave him the answer to one of biology's puzzles: how the cell can read the blueprint of its DNA. DNA is the substance in the nucleus of a cell that controls heredity. It determines the form and function of the cell. Thus, DNA is the blueprint for life. So, when he was just looking at that X-ray film of that hormone, he suddenly got the idea, but he didn't show his excitement. He neither shouted nor did any gesture to show his happiness. Rather, he believed that with with this finding about the insect hormone, the photos they again gave him the answer to one of the biology's puzzles. Means it was a very difficult thing, and all the scientists, they were working on it. It was a puzzle for everyone, but Albright find out the answer of that. And it was that how the cells can read the blueprint. Blueprint is, you can say, it's a design plan of its DNA, that how the cells, they read the DNA. And what is DNA? We know it is the substance in the nucleus of a cell that controls our heredity. Since some children, they are very much, they look very similar to their parents. Some have similar eyes, some have the skin color, and some have the same characteristics, the eating habits, etc. They are just passed on from one generation to other, and it is all because of the DNA. This is the heredity. So the passing of hormones from one generation to next is the heredity. So DNA is that substance in the nucleus which controls our heredity, and Albright has found that how the DNA, or how the cell reads the DNA, and it determines the form and function of the cell. Means this is the basis on how the cells work, how the genes are passed on from one generation to next generation. And in this way, DNA, it is the blueprint of life, it is the design plan of our life. So this was a very big achievement, and Albright did it. Children, that's all for today. Rest we will do in the next class.